Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with another MBTI video. Today we're going to be looking inside the mind of Mr. Ben Shapiro to see if we can get a little bit of a glimpse on how his mind works. But before we begin, let's review the system because you have not seen MBTI done quite the way that I do it. I have changed some things and it is not the standard MBTI. I use these 5 questions to find out where he places on this chart. We are looking for, are you focused on the ideas or the things? Is it all about the things that you can actually put your hands on with ideas supporting it, or is it about the ideas and the concepts with the things to support that? Are you looking for the new ones or the old ones? Is it about, hey, look at all of these, or is it about, hey, look at this one? We are trying to see if you're doing that for the tribe or for yourself. If you're doing it for yourself, it doesn't mean selfish. It means that you get the value out of it first. If you're for the tribe gets the value first, and then you get your value extracted from it. Are you rigid or flexible? Is it my way or the highway? Or is it about, let's accommodate these other beliefs, these other ways of doing things? And are you direct or informative? Do you give the whole answer and stop? Or do you give the whole answer 2, 3, 4 times? Chase a couple rabbit holes along the way. All of these things combined together help us to find things about other people that we can identify with. The goal of this is not to give an official diagnosis. I am not a doctor. This is not a medical diagnosis. This is identifying patterns in behaviors and thoughts so that we can understand ourselves in a better manner. With that being said, we are going to be looking at the Lex Fridman podcast, and we're going to see what Ben has to say. We're looking for these 5 questions.
You're exceptionally good at debate. You wrote How to Debate Leftists and Destroy Them. You're kind of known for this kind of stuff, just exceptionally skilled at conversation, at debate.
That seems like a kind of a control type of thing.
At getting to the facts of the matter and using logic to get to the conclusion in the debate. Do you ever worry that this power, we talked about the ring, this power you were given has corrupted you and your ability to see what's like to pursue the truth versus just winning debates?
I hope not. I mean, so I think one of the things that's kind of funny about the branding versus the reality is that most of the things that get characterized as destroying in debates with facts and logic, most of those things are basically me having a conversation with somebody on a college campus. It actually isn't like a formal debate where we sit there and we critique each other's positions, or it's not me insulting anybody. A lot of the clips that have gone very viral is me making an argument and then there not being like an amazing counter argument. Yep. Many of the debates that I've held have been extremely cordial. Right? To take the latest example, like about a year ago, I debated Anna Kasparian from Young Turks. It was very cordial. It was very nice, right? That's sort of the way that I like to debate. My rule when it comes to debate and or discussion is that my opponent actually gets to pick the mode in which we work. So if it's going to...
That's some trial flexibility, right? That's not my way or the highway. That's let's accommodate.
Be a debate of ideas, and we're just going to discuss and critique and clarify, then we can do that. If somebody comes loaded for bear, then I will respond in kind. Because one of the big problems, I think, in sort of the debate...
Awesome. He brought up a specific example of what he does, right? As opposed to just keeping it random or keeping it up on the top. He brought a specific example of this thing that has happened. We're talking a good bit about ideas, but the question was about ideas. We're going to look for some more confirmation of that. But he brought the idea down to the specific example of me and Anna Kasparian. That's a best worst, right? That's more S than it is N.
/discussion sphere is very often misdiagnosis of what exactly is going on. People who think that a discussion is a debate and vice versa. And that can be a real problem. And there are people who will, treat what ought to be a discussion as, for example, an exercise in performance art. And so what that is mugging or trolling or saying trolly things in order to just get to the, that's something I actually don't do during debate.
Okay, so this is an example of ideas, right? Mugging or trolling, and these people do these things, not necessarily specific examples in detail, but more the ideas, right? This is a couple of ideas in support of the thing. That's what it's reading like. We'll see going forward.
I mean, if you actually watch me talk to people, I don't actually do the trolling thing. The trolling thing is almost solely relegated to Twitter and me making jokes on my show. Mm-hmm. When it comes to actually debating people, that sounds actually a lot like what we're doing right now. It's just the person may be taking just an obverse position to mine. And so that's fine. Usually half of the debate or discussion is me just asking for clarification of terms. Like, what exactly do you mean by this? So I can drill
That's some control.
down on where the actual disagreement may lie. Because some of the time people think they're disagreeing and they're actually not disagreeing. Like when I'm talking with Anna Kasparian and she's talking about how corporate and government have too much power together. I'm like, well, you sound like a Tea Party. Like, you and I are on the same page about that. That sort of stuff does tend to happen a lot in discussion. I think that when discussion gets termed debate, it's a problem. When debate gets termed discussion, it's even more problematic because debate is a different thing.
And
Okay. So again, we got brought back to the one specific example with him and Anna, but not like he has several other examples, but that one's a prominent one. So he keeps going back to this best one. Again, we were talking about the ideas. That was very idea level. It was not specific ideas, but broad ideas. So we have the one example of the thing that has actually happened that he keeps referring to, and we have all of these ideas. So the main thing is to try to determine which one's the driving factor. Is the focus the many ideas, or is it the one thing, right? Is it the one experience that drives it and is supported by the ideas, or is it, hey, all of these ideas is supported by the one thing?
I find that your debate and your conversation is often in good faith. You're able to steel man the other side. You're actually listening. You're considering the other side.
That's explaining flexibility too, right?
The times when I see that you
Like, everybody uses the whole stack. You use it to differing degrees of efficiency. So it's about identifying the major characteristics as opposed to the minor ones.
Ben Shapiro destroys leftists, it's usually just like you said, the other side is doing the trolling, because they don't. I mean, the people that do criticize you for that interaction is the people that usually get destroyed are like 20 years old.
Youth breeds ignorance. It's not until you obtain some experience that you probably know what you're talking about.
And they're usually not sophisticated in any kind of degree in terms of being able to use logic and reason and facts and so on.
And that's totally fine, by the way. I mean, if people want to criticize
That's flexible.
me for speaking on college campuses where a lot of political conversation happens, both right and left, that's fine. I mean, I've had lots of conversations.
That's not a lot of tribe focus either, right?
People on the other side of the aisle too. I mean, right? I've done podcasts with Sam Harris, and we've talked about atheism, or I've done debates with Anna Kasparian, or I've done a debate with Cenk Uygur, or I've had conversations with
Chunky yogurt.
lots of people on the other side of the aisle. In fact, I believe I'm the only person on the right who recommends that people listen to shows on the other side of the aisle. Right?
That's not true. I do that all the time.
I mean, I say on my show on a fairly regular basis that people should listen to Pod Save America.
That's flexibility and some tribe, right? Like, it's been hard to determine between the tribe and the self here, because the nature of the conversation is geared towards him. But we see the tribe kickback, right? I talked to Anna Kasparian. I talked to Chunky Yogurt. He's bringing back these specific examples of best worst situations, and it seems to be kickback to the tribe more than self-focused.
Now,
Right. It's about correcting the tribe, not necessarily about being right,
no one on Pod Save
which I did not expect.
America will ever say that somebody should listen to my show. That is verboten. That is not something that can be had. It's one of the strangenesses of our politics. It's what I've called the happy birthday problem, which is I have a lot of friends who are of the left and are publicly of the left. And on my birthday, they'll send you a text message, happy birthday, but they will never tweet happy birthday, lest they be acknowledging that you were born of woman, and this can't be allowed. So on the Sunday special, I've had a bevy of people who are on the other side of the aisle, a lot of them, ranging from people in Hollywood like Jason Blum to Larry Wilmore to Sam to just a lot of people.
Sam has discredited himself completely. And again, we're getting specific examples of these things, right? It seems to be more things focused than ideas focused, but that's a little bit hard to determine still.
On the left, I think we're in the near future probably going to do a Sunday special with Ro Khanna up in California, the California congressperson. Very nice guy. I had him on the show. Like that kind of stuff is.
That's another specific thing. It's not a specific thing that has happened yet, but it is a specific thing that will immediately happen in the near future, right? It's not talking about far in the future and the concept behind it.
It's fun and interesting, but I think that the easy way out for a clip that people don't like is to either immediately clip the clip, I'll take a 2-minute clip and clip it down to 15 seconds where somebody insults me, and then that goes viral, which is, welcome to the internet. Or to say, well, you're only debating college students. You're only talking to 20. I talk to a lot more people than that. That's just not the stuff you're watching.
That's, again, tribe focus.
You lost your cool in it.
And flexibility, right? He seems to be fairly direct. He's not chasing rabbit holes. He's not over-explaining the situation. Now, he's got a whole podcast where he talks for a very long period of time, but that's not informative, right? You can give information and not be informative. Informative is about the over-explaining of the situation, to keep hammering your point home, to chase down rabbit holes, to say the thing 3 or 4 times. He's not doing that. What he's doing is he's giving the whole full answer and then shutting up. He gives an example pretty much in every single one of these questions, right? It is, here's the topic, here's an example of that topic. And so that seems to be that, and not, well, here's an example, here's an example, here's an example, here's an example, and here's a whole different rabbit hole.
An interview with BBC's Andrew Neil, and you were really honest about it after, which was kind of refreshing and enjoyable. As the internet said, they've never seen anyone lose an interview. So to me, honestly, it was like seeing like Floyd Mayweather Jr. or somebody like knocked down. What was it? Can you take me through that experience?
Here's that day. That day is I have a book release, didn't get a lot of sleep the night before, and this is the last interview of the day. And it's an interview with BBC. I don't know anything about BBC. I don't watch BBC. I don't know any of the hosts. So we get on the interview, and it's supposed to be about the book. And the host, Andrew Neil, doesn't ask virtually a single question about the book. He just starts reading me bad old tweets, which I hate. It's annoying and it's stupid and it's the worst form of interview.
Yeah. When
somebody just reads you bad old tweets, especially when I've acknowledged bad old tweets before. And so I'm going.
We've already dealt with this.
Through the list.
These specific worsts we have done
with him. And this interview was solidly 20 minutes. It was a long interview. And we get to, and I make a couple of particularly annoyed mistakes in the interview. So annoyed mistake number 1 is the ego play, right? So there's a point in the middle of the interview where I say, like, I don't even know who you are, which was true. I didn't know who he was. It turns out he's a very famous person in Britain. And so
it's like being famous in Montana.
You can't make that ego play.
But even if he's not famous, that's not...
For real, like, I get it. It's a whole country. It really is. But it fits inside of our states, like several of them.
Isn't it right? It's a dumb thing to do, and it's an ass thing to do. So so saying that was more just kind of peak and silliness. So that was mistake.
I enjoyed watching that. It was like, oh, Ben is human.
Yeah, glad somebody enjoyed it. So there's that, and then the other mistake was that I just don't watch enough British TV. So the way that interviews are done there are much more adversarial than American TV. In American TV, if somebody is adversarial with you, you assume that they're a member of the other side. That's typically how it is. And so I'm critiquing some of his questions at the beginning, and I thought that the critique of some of his questions is actually fair. He was asking me about abortion, and I thought he was asking it from a way of framing the question that wasn't accurate. And so I assumed that he was on the left, because, again, I'd never heard of him. And so, I mischaracterized him, and I apologize later for mischaracterizing him. We finally go through the interview. It's 20 minutes. He just keeps going with the bad old tweets. And finally, I got up and I took off the microphone. I walked out. And immediately, I knew it was a mistake. Like within 30 seconds of the end of the interview, I knew it was a mistake. And that's why, even before the interview came out, I believe I corrected the record that...
Okay, so that particular thing is leaning more towards the idea than the actual thing, right? Misunderstanding what the best and worst would be.
Neil is not on the left. That's a mistake by me.
Like it's really hard to determine things and ideas here because he's bringing up the specific examples, but it's not necessarily about this. We're not getting the one idea, right? That's not even in the consideration right now because we're not. He's bringing plenty of other ideas, right? He's bringing a multitude of ideas, but he's not bringing, hey, this is the one idea. In the same way that he's not bringing, hey, this is all the experiences. He's bringing the one experience. And so we're definitely looking at the NE-SI interchange. The problem is determining which one is the dominant one, right? Is it I'm bringing these specific examples in support of the ideas, or is it I'm bringing these ideas in support of the examples? And it seems like it might be more towards he is bringing the examples in support of the ideas, right? So I'm leaning more towards the ideas than the things on this. Like he's got the things, he's got the specific examples, but he's bringing them in support of the ideas. And it's in support of keeping the ideas open, right? Keep the ideas open of listen to the other side. Keep the ideas open of these things that people are thinking about.
And then took the hit for a bad interview. And so as far as what I wish I'd done differently, I wish I'd known who he was. I wish I'd done my research. I wish that I had treated it as though there was a possibility that it was going to be more adversarial than it was. Mm-hmm. I think I was incautious about the interview because it was pitched as it's just another book interview, and it wasn't just another book interview. It was treated much more adversarially than that. So I wish that's on me. I got to research the people who are talking to me and watch their shows and learn about that. And
that definitely leads me more towards the ideas than the things too, because if he was more about the things, he would have done more of the research, right? Especially with the SI, because SI is all about knowing the things that have happened. So if he would have been higher in the stack with the SI, it probably would have researched the interviewer prior.
And obviously, the kind of gut level appeal to ego or arrogance like that's a bad look, and shouldn't have done that. And
there's two things or two ideas, right?
Losing your cool is always a bad look.
There's another. That's ideas, right? They are things, right? You did these things, but it's the ideas of the things.
The fact that sort of became somewhat viral and stood out just shows that it happens so rarely to you. So just to look at like the day in the life of Ben Shapiro, you speak a lot, very eloquently about difficult topics.
Many ideas.
What goes into the research, the mental and you always look pretty like energetic and like you're not exhausted by the burden, the heaviness of the topics you're covering day after day after day after day. So what goes through the preparation, mentally, diet wise, anything like that? Like when do you wake up?
Okay, so I wake up when my kids wake me up. Usually that's my baby daughter who's 2.5. We hear her on the monitor usually about 6:15, 6:20 a.m.
Again, that leads me towards the ideas because SI is all about keeping a schedule, and this schedule is dependent upon the tribe.
So I get up. My wife sleeps in a little bit. I go get the baby. Then my son gets up, and then my oldest daughter gets up. I have 8, 6, and 2. The boy's the middle child.
Is that both a source of stress and happiness?
Oh my God, it's the height of both, right? I mean, it's the source of the greatest happiness. So the way that I characterize it is this: when it comes to sort of kids in life. So when you're single, your boundaries of happiness and unhappiness, you can be a 0 in terms of happiness, you can be like a 10 in terms of happiness. Then you get married and it goes up to like a 20 and a negative 20 because your happiest stuff is with your wife, and then the most unhappy stuff is when something happens to your spouse. It's the worst thing in the entire world. Then you have kids and all limits are removed. So
okay, so this is about the ideas, right? This isn't about the specific instances, it's about the ideas.
Best things that have ever happened to me are things where I'm watching my kids and they're playing together and they're being wonderful and sweet and cute and I love them so much. And the worst things are when my son is screaming at me for no reason because he's being insane. And I have to deal with that, right? I mean, like, or something bad happens to my daughter at school or something like that. That stuff is really bad. So yes, the source of my greatest happiness, the source of my greatest stress. So they get me up at about 6:15 in the morning. I feed them breakfast. I'm kind of scrolling the news while I'm making them eggs, and just updating myself on anything that may have happened overnight. I go into the office, put on the makeup and the wardrobe or whatever, and then I sit down and do the show. A lot of the prep is actually done the night before because the news cycle doesn't change all that much between kind of late at night and in the morning, so I can supplement in the morning. So I do the show.
So a lot of the preparation, like thinking through what are the big issues in the world, is done the night before.
Yeah, I mean, and that's reading, pretty much all the legacy media. So I rip on legacy media a lot, but that's because a lot of what they do is really good, and a lot of what they do is really bad. I cover a lot of legacy media, so that's probably covering Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, Boston Globe, Daily Mail. And then I'll look over at some of the alternative media. I'll look at my own website, Daily Wire. I'll look at Breitbart. I'll look at The Blaze. I'll look at maybe The Intercept. I'll look at a bunch of different sources.
Those are all things, right? Because we're talking about specific instances. We're talking about being correct or incorrect in those specific instances. So,
and then I will look at different clips online. So Mediaite comes in handy here. Grabian comes in handy here. That sort of stuff, because my show relies very heavily on being able to play people so you can hear them in their own words. And so that's sort of the media diet. So I sit down, I do the show, and then once I'm done with the show, I usually have between now it's like 11:15 in the morning maybe because sometimes I'll pre-record the show. So it's 11:15 in the morning. I'll go home, and if my wife's available, I'll grab lunch with her. If not, then I will go and work out. I try to work out like 5 times a week with a trainer, something like that. And then I will
Just
sit-
regular gym stuff. Just going to the gym.
yeah, weights and plyometrics and some CrossFit kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, beneath this mild exterior lies a hulking monster.
Yeah.
And so I'll do that. Then I will do reading and writing. So I'm usually working on a book at any given time.
You shut off the rest of the world.
Yes. So I put some music in my ears, usually Brahms or Bach, sometimes Beethoven or Mozart. It's those four. It's usually
rap.
those are on rotation.
No rap.
No rap. No rap. Despite my extraordinary rendition of WAP,
Yeah.
I am not in fact a rap.
Do you still hate WAP? The song?
It's I will say I do not think that it is the peak of Western civilized art.
Okay.
I don't think that 100 years from now people will be gluing their faces to a WAP in protest at the environment.
But Brahms and the rest will be still around.
Yes, I would assume if people still have a functioning prefrontal cortex and any sort of taste.
Strong words from Ben Shapiro.
All
All right, so you're
Okay, so again, this is difficult because we're not really dealing with like a lot of things. We're not dealing with specific ideas, and it's hard to differentiate between whether he is giving more of the specific examples than he is of the broad ideas. They're both definitely there. And I'm going to have to make a decision on this, right? So this is why we say it's not like some kind of a medical diagnosis. We're going to go ahead and do this, and we're going to look at coming back on the other side. We have a fairly significant amount of tribe, right? We have both things and ideas, but it seems like the things are brought in support of the ideas as opposed to the ideas being in support of the things. So he lays out, here's a couple of ideas, and then he gives a specific example that's in support of that. That seems to be the pattern here. I could be wrong. I always hold out that I could be wrong. But this seems to be ideas. This seems to be new, right? He is not talking about this one specific idea. It's all about these top level ideas. So we're looking at ideas, we're looking at new. He seems to be tribe. He's more flexible than I really thought that he was going to be. So that's going to be flexible. And he seems to be direct. So ideas is going to give us the right hand side of the screen. New is going to give us the third column. Self is going to give us, or tribe is going to give us the bottom 2 rows. Flexible is going to give us the very bottom row. And that's going to be an ENFP. So give me 1 second and I will swap over our ENFP so that we can talk about the last section. I said turn that on. Okay. The ENFP in the last section. The last section deals with the third slot. The first 2 slots are how you receive the information and process it. The next 2 slots are how you give that information back. If you are direct, that means that you are introverted in that slot. That means that you are holding back all of the energy for yourself. If you are informative, it means you're giving it away. He seems to be direct, so we're going to be looking at an ENFP alternate. What does that mean? He is going to, without even thinking about it and even really understanding it, going to look at all the ideas. He's going to take in this idea, this idea, this idea, this idea, this idea, this idea. Not necessarily to make any judgments about them, but to see that all of these things exist. He's going to feel responsible for how he feels in that and where his morals affect all of these ideas. So the idea comes in, it gets checked against his morals. Now, your morals come from your tribe. Your tribe is not everyone. It is who you have decided is the important people. It can be your family, but it doesn't have to be. It is almost certainly your friend group. It can be your work people, but it doesn't have to be. Your tribe is the people you have decided are important, and the things that they have ethically decided you're going to derive your morals from. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. The third eye is where you see forward, is how you see the path that you need to be taking, and it is the part where you get defensive, right? For him, that is going to be the things that have actually happened. It's going to be the organization of the things, that is going to be the actual factual occurrences. We can see that quite often with Mr. Shapiro. He is quite defensive over, hey, no, that's not a real thing. This is a real thing. The throat is where you're going to miscommunicate it and misunderstand it. And for him, that's going to be the TE. That is what everybody else is thinking. And you can make your own assumptions from that based on your political leanings. The heart is what you really want to do. And what does he really want to do? He really wants to have the best idea, right? He sees all of these ideas and he wants to be able to sort it into the best idea. Now, he does that through his morals, but he'd have a better chance if he fed his solar plexus, because the solar plexus feeds your heart. So if you're pumping up your solar plexus, that means that you're going to be more enabled to do the thing that you really want to do. And for him, the solar plexus is going to be the ethics. It's making sure that your tribe is the correct tribe. It's making sure that the ethics that you are pulling your morals from actually align with what you actually want them to be. You have to spend time in logic for that and decide whether these things that I hold to be true should be. The sacral is where you intentionally choose the wrong thing, right? Nobody ever says, hey, I want to do the wrong thing, but people do it all of the time, and that is generally because of these next two slots. The sacral slot is the trickster energy, it is the sexual energy, and it's what you unintentionally choose the wrong things. For him, that is going to be all the things, right? When he does get something new, it's probably going to be the wrong brand. When he does dress up, it's probably going to be just a little bit off. When he does go for the experiences, it's going to be more about his experience than the other experiences. Incorporating that into yourself and keeping out that, hey, maybe this isn't the best thing. This thing that I'm defensive over is not actually the best thing. Maybe there is something else out there that might be better. He's going to have a tendency to not do that. That's where it really starts to kick you in the butt. And that is because of the base, because the base is where you just completely miss it. There's a lot of energy at the top and the bottom. Good energy at the top, bad energy at the bottom, and it all feeds towards the middle. If you're a TI on the bottom, that means that your logic choices are not necessarily based upon the correct many things, right? For this specific example, if you're making the wrong logic choices, then everything else is getting messed up, right? If you're not making the yes and no decisions correctly, that's where things start to get a little bit dicey. You fix your TI, or my internal thoughts, these are the things that I think as opposed to what my tribe thinks, then you can start to understand where you stand about the things that you're pulling in. You will stop choosing not to see those. If any of this resonates with you, if it feels like maybe something that you can connect with, if you think that maybe Mr. Shapiro here has some of the same thought patterns as you, and you see the things that he says as maybe you too, I have a video for you. The ENFP video talks about both of these types because it is really two separate types. The normal and the alternative vary in how they deal with things. The main focus is the same, but how they deal with it is not. And so if you feel like maybe Mr. Shapiro has something that you identify with, you should check out the ENFP video. The Infinite Integration System, which is also linked above, will help you to learn how, through prayer, fasting, and meditation, to incorporate these things into yourself so that you can strengthen your base and your trickster and work your way up the stack and be better at what you want to be better at. If that is a little bit too woo-woo for you, because some people don't like prayer, fasting, and meditation. If that's too much for you, I have the MBTI parts where I try to just talk about the scientific side of things. I don't do very good at it, but I try really hard. And it is more about focusing on the actual mechanics of the stack and how to integrate that into yourself. Now we're going to be looking for confirmations. What are we going to be looking for? We're going to be seeing if he is absorbing these ideas without even really thinking about it, keeping all of these surface level ideas, right? These are the ideas without getting too specific on those. We're going to see if he is making the judgments based on his morals and how he feels about the situation, whether he is getting defensive over the things that have actually happened, and whether he is not really misunderstanding, but just kind of missing what other people are thinking. We got a good bit of that in the the interview that he was just talking about, right? He missed what they were thinking altogether. He didn't do the research, and he missed it. We're also going to be looking to see if there's some logical inconsistencies. He spends a lot of time debating. He has probably worked on his logic, so that's going to be a little bit harder to figure out. And we're going to see if he is missing the actual physical things that are happening, right? We got a whole broad spectrum of ideas, but we're not getting a broad spectrum of the actual things. So those are the variables that we are looking for our confirmations going forward. We're going to go forward a little bit more. I don't use the whole podcast. I try not to take up too much of their products, but if you are interested in the whole thing, the link is below. It always is. Now, let's look.
You got some classical music in your ears and you're focusing. Are you at the computer when you're writing?
Yeah, I'm at the computer. Usually.
And the classical music thing really does kind of play into the missing all of the things, right? It's not necessarily the wrong choice, right? But it is missing a broad spectrum of other possibilities of things, not the ideas, but the actual physical things.
We have a kind of a room that has some sun coming in, so it's nice in there. Or I'll go up to a library that we just completed for me, so I'll go up there and I'll write and
like
read.
with physical books?
Yeah, I love physical books, and because I keep Sabbath, I don't use Kindle, because when I'm reading a book and it hits Sabbath, I have to turn off the Kindle. So
that might be some logical inconsistencies. I'm just saying that might be a logical problem right there.
That means that I have tons and tons and tons of physical books. When you move from Los Angeles,
because I mean, is it really different? Is it really different to read a book or the Kindle? Is it physically a thing?
To Florida, I had about 7,000 volumes. I had to discard probably 4,000 of them. And then I've built that back up now, so I'm probably going to have to go through another round where I put them somewhere else. I tend to tab books.
That could be seen as getting defensive over the physical things too, right?
Rather than highlighting them, because I can't highlight on Sabbath. So I have I tend to tab books rather than highlighting them because I can't highlight on Sabbath.
And again, logical inconsistency. Is there really a difference in that? You are doing the same work. Like, that is logically inconsistent. That makes zero sense whatsoever.
So I have the little stickers and I put them.
And I mean, that can be the way you feel about it. No problem. You've got your morals. You're choosing these morals to filter your worldview through, right? You've got your tribe. You're settled with your tribe. You've got their morals. You've got their ethics. But it doesn't matter if they're not logically inconsistent or if they're not logically consistent.
In the book, so a typical book from me, you can see it on the book club, will be filled with tabs on the side, things that I want to take. Now, actually, I got a person who I pay to go through and write down in files the quotes that I like from the book, so I have those handy. So which is a good way for me to remember what
somebody to organize them for me.
It is that I've read, because I read probably somewhere between 3 and 5 books a week, and then in a good week 5, and then I write, I read. And then I go pick up my kids from school at 3:30. So according to my kids, I have no job. I'm there in the mornings until they leave for school. I pick them up from school. I hang out with them until they go to bed, which is usually 7:30 or so. So I'm helping them with their homework, and I'm playing with them, and I'm taking them on rides in the brand new Tesla, which my son is obsessed with.
Intentionally choosing the wrong thing there.
And then I put them to bed, and then I sit back down. I prep for the next day, go through all those media sources.
You can do that in Florida. It's not a good idea in Minnesota.
Talking about compile kind of a schedule for what I want the show to look like and run a show. It's very detail oriented. Nobody writes anything for me. I write all my.
That's some defense on the things, right?
Own stuff.
Details are SI, right? These things have actually happened. It is detail oriented, and I am defensive over them.
So every word that comes out of my mouth is my fault. And then, hopefully I have a couple hours or an hour to hang out with my wife before we go to bed.
The words you write, do you edit a lot? Or does it just come out, you're thinking, what are the key ideas I want to express?
No, I don't tend to edit a lot. So I thank God, I'm able to write extraordinarily quickly. So I write very, very fast. In fact, in a previous life, I was...
You also speak fast, so it's similar?
Yeah, exactly. And I speak in paragraphs. So it's exactly the same thing. In a previous life, I was a ghostwriter, so I used to be sort of known as a turnaround specialist in the publishing industry. There'd be somebody who came to the publisher and says, I have 3 weeks and to get this book done, I don't have a word done. And they would call me up and be like, this person needs a book written. And so in 3 weeks, I'd knock out 60,000 words or so.
Is there something you can say to the process that you follow to think, like how you think about ideas? Like stuff is going on in the world, and trying to understand what is happening. What are
All right, we should get some good confirmations out of this.
the explanations? What are the forces behind this? Do you have a process, or just you wait for the muse to give you the interpretation of?
Well, I
the
mean,
world?
I think that I don't think it's a formal process, but because I read, so there's two ways to do it. One is sometimes, sometimes the daily grind of the news is going to refer back to core principles that are broader and deeper. So I thank God, because I've read so much on so many different things of a lot of different point of views. Then if something breaks and a piece of news breaks, I can immediately sort of channel that into, in the mental Rolodex, these three big ideas that I think are
Three big ideas out of a single instance, right?
really important, and then I can talk at length about what those ideas are, and I can explain.
So let's keep the ideas open. That's a good confirmation right there. I think that's a fairly good confirmation, and it's about how he feels with it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because we're getting a little bit long, and I don't like to take, that's the wrong tab, repent. I don't like to take too much, actually, let's go ahead and bring that back. No. I don't like to take too much from the podcast because we're looking for examples, and this is the best way to get them, but this is not my work, so I'm not trying to take any more than I absolutely have to get it done. It does seem to be that he fits the profile of the ENFP fairly well, especially the alternate. He is very much keep these ideas open, right? It's not about the one specific idea, although he hits specific examples to reinforce these ideas. It's about, hey, are you considering these ideas, right? It's pushing back on the tribe about these ideas. And so it really does feel like he is a good fit for the ENFP. ENFP is all about making the moral stance, right? We're going to keep these ideas open. I'm defensive about the things that have happened, but it's all about keeping or being responsible for the morals, to make sure that people understand the moral implications of things. That's derived from the ethics, but it's not the ethics. It's your interpretation of the ethics. This seems to be fairly well fit. So y'all make sure y'all get back over and give some love down below to the link for the interview is down below. Y'all make sure y'all get back to Lex Fridman's page. Give him a like, share, and a sub. Make sure you watch the whole podcast, get the full context of the conversation, see that I'm not misrepresenting anything. This seems to be a good general pattern for his way of thought. But again, this is not a medical diagnosis. I developed this system because it worked for me. I went into the MBTI system and it did not work, so I changed it and I made it where it did work, and it's worked for me. I've created a framework to change lives. You have to do the work, though. I can't change your life. I have no right to even try. What I'm here to do is help you identify the things that are holding you back from what you want to do so that you can change you in the way that you want to change you. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt's Take. Peace.